My name is Cora and welcome to Craftopia, where we are creating a safe space for artists and crafters of all ages and experience levels to learn, create, explore, and grow. I'd like to invite you to check out our website at www.crafttopiawa.com, where you can learn more about our organization and vision and see a list of upcoming classes. You can also follow us on social media at Craftopia. Now, pull up a chair, get comfortable, and let's get crafty.
If you're using a craft kit from Craftopia, then you already have everything you need to make a reindeer. We're going to start with 3 plastic squares. These are 10 by 10, a pair of googly eyes, and color of yarn of your choice, and then a pipe cleaner and pom-pom to make extra decorations if you'd like. So to start, we are going to grab a length of yarn. It doesn't need to be too long. I think about maybe a yard there. Cut that off, and we're going to get that threaded on our yarn needle. Now, if you're using a plastic yarn needle, you will notice that the eye of your needle is just barely big enough to go through. Thankfully, your squares are stretchy, so don't be afraid to kind of force it through. We are going to start by going up in the second square from the corner, so we're going to leave this one empty and start here. You can also do it from this side if you prefer. Being right-handed, this is usually where I go. So 1, 2, we're going to go up, pull through almost all the way, leave about an inch, 3/4 of an inch of a tail there. I'm going to hold that with my finger while I continue to stitch, and we're going to stitch over that tail so we don't have to weave it in later. Now I'm going to go down opposite of that, so second square on the other side. And there's our first stitch. So these ones I'm actually going to make long stitches just to make it go quick and fast. If you want a smaller tight stitch, you can actually continue to just go over the one little plus all the way down and then back the other way and then back and make a whole bunch of rows. But for today's video, I'm actually now going to go up in the third hole, and then I'm going to go all the way across to the diagonal and down in this third hole. Same thing again, holding nice and tight, up in the fourth hole, down in the fourth hole, and I'm going to continue that pattern all the way across my piece of plastic canvas. All right, so I've covered my entire canvas square going diagonally across. I have my tail hanging here. I didn't tie it off or anything because I'm actually going to use this end to continue sewing in. You should end up with 3 square canvases like that, and then we're going to sew them together. Oop, that one's got a little extra tail. I'm going to trim that puppy off because it's just going to get in the way if I leave it. There we go. So to sew these together, you do have several options. Some people like to sew them flat. It does make it a little bit easier, so you would sew them in an L shape and then fold it all together. I personally don't like doing this just because I find that it makes my end seams a little bit looser, and so once you have your final thing, it's not quite as neat and tight as I would like it. So I'm actually going to sew them together flat next to each other. When you also sew them, something to keep in mind if you're using a long stitch like this is the direction that you have it. And because if you have it going across this way on the top, then when you squeeze it, you're going to get these funky yarn gaps in the middle. Again, it's not really the end of the world. It's a personal preference, and it just personally drives me nuts. So I'm going to make sure that I'm doing mine vertically instead of horizontally. That way when it's opened and squeezed, they lay nice and flat. So top piece is going to be this one, and then I'm going to sew it on my bottom piece, which will be this one. They're all the same, so it doesn't too much matter. I'm using the same color thread to stitch mine together. You can certainly use an accent color. That looks really, really nice. But again, for today's video, I'm just going to sew them together with this. So I just finished in this second to last hole. I'm actually going to find that corresponding hole on the other side, pull my yarn up through that. That should get them nice and close together. And then I'm going to go into this corner that's been unworked thus far. And I'm going to sink 2 or 3 stitches into that corner just to make sure it is really well secured. I don't like having these little plastic pieces hanging out, so I always like to do an extra stitch or 2 and make sure that that is covered. Now, depending on how thin or thick the yarn you are working with is, you might end up wanting to put multiple stitches as you go along your side. So we're just going to continue to stitch through both of our plastic canvas pieces all the way around. And so you'll notice if I go into the next stitch, because this is pretty thin yarn that I've got here, once you pull it tight, there's going to be a little bit of a gap of plastic. Again, totally personal preference. If you don't like that, then you can go ahead and just go through the same stitch twice, and that will add a little bit more and cover it up better. So I'm going to go ahead and go all the way down this side. I'm just apparently pulling my needle out, which does happen when you get towards the tail end of your yarn, especially when you're using a large eye and not paying very much attention. So back into this end corner here. Again, this one should have some stitches in it because we've got our diagonals, but I'm going to go ahead and sink 3 as I go around the corner. And then I'm actually going to go down all of this side as well. So we are stitching 2 sides together for this first panel. I'm getting pretty short on my yarn, but I think I can make it. We're going to play Yarn Chicken. That's what this game is called. The game I am very familiar with. I play it often. Oh, come on, one more stitch. I think I just pulled my yarn out again. Nothing quite like a game of Yarn Chicken while I'm taping something here. All right. And that one's not going to go through very well, so we're going to stick it the other way. And that's totally fine, because that's really where I needed to end anyways. All right, so now we've got our cheeks started. We've got one more to put in here. This one is going to get sewn in as well. Essentially, it's going to go in the middle here. So because I want this to be my top so that I can squeeze, this is going to be my bottom or my back. This is going to be my middle. He is going to go the opposite direction. Maybe. He does not want to sit in there very nicely for demonstration purposes. So we're making this 3D shape where it's going to sew. So we're going to sew these 2 together, and we're going to leave these 2 open so that will end up being his mouth. All right, so I'm going to thread. This one looks a little longer. We're going to start there. You can use, again, a separate piece of yarn. I like to just utilize what I've already got attached since I've got some long tails. I'm going to start right where I ended with my last one. That way I can sew that piece in. Give it an extra stitch. Make sure it's nice and tight. I'm going to do one more just because it looks like there's a lot of canvas height sticking out there. Okay. And this is where it gets a little more fussy. So I am now going to go along this end, joining this with the new piece of plastic canvas here. And here's the tail for my last one. I'm just laying it across so that I can sew it in as I go, and I don't have to mess with it later. This is very, very thin yarn, and it does not like to stay or do anything I ask it to. There we go. And the rest should be easy going from here. So I'm going to go again along 2 sides here. When we get to this corner, sink a couple extra stitches to get around so we don't have quite so much pokey, and then down this row as well. It looks like it's going to be another game of Yarn Chicken on this side. 2, almost there. Oop. 1, and then this last one corner, this should actually be the first corner we started with when we started sewing. And through. Okay, I got a really small tail, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that. Now we are actually going to just stitch individually, so not sewing these ones together down this side and down that side, just to finish off his mouth. All right, so I'm almost all the way around now. You can see got my nice little lips on. I'm going to get these last couple stitches in here, and then we will get the rest of the little decoration bits on. So now this particular one is made to be a reindeer. That's what's included in the kit if you're using one of our kits. But you can certainly do these with a variety of different styles and colors. So entirely up to you. They're super easy to replicate this kit. All right, so now I'm in my last stitch. I'm actually going to do 1 stitch across its cheek just because I feel it makes it a little extra secure with all the wear and tear it's going to have, opening and closing. And then I am going to actually slide under that stitch I just made, pull it tight, and back through my loop to make a nice little knot there. Should be a pretty small knot. And then I hide it in by tucking it back down through. And now I'm going to cheat because I've got a decent amount of yarn left over here on my hook. And I'm actually going to fish my needle back up through to this top, which is where I'm going to have it hang from, so I don't have to do yet something else. And then through here, find a length that I like. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to tie a knot up here. Actually going to make this one a double knot. Oop, maybe. Tie it on the wrong side. Well, then we'll tie it on this as well. It's going to be a really secure knot. Single, double, and then finally take my needle down the back side, into the middle, pull it out the mouth. If you want to weave this in, great. I'm just going to kind of hide it. It's kind of hard to see, but I'm just going to take my needle and go through a couple of these bits inside, hide it across the roof of its mouth, pull through, and now go through and trim off any little funky tails that you've got to clean it up. So I got a little bit there I want to trim out. Being careful not to actually snip any of your stitches, because trust me, that is not a fun thing to do at this point. And a little dental work here for him. Ta-da. Okay, so now we have this 3-sided funky looking shape. Just for future reference, if you sew this up with a bell inside, excellent cat toy. So now we can get on to decorating. I've got a couple of googly eyes. I seem to have misplaced my pom-pom and reindeer antlers. So for the antlers, if you want smaller ones, you can cut them in the pipe cleaner in half, or you can certainly get super fancy with how you shape them up top. I am just going to take this and pop it through top corner, not the corner, second from the corner. It's stuck on my thread right now, so we're going to wiggle that through. Eventually it will go. I had a pair of pliers handy, that would be great. Nope, it's just stuck right there on that little thread. It wants to go. I promise this is normally easier than it looks. There we go. And then make sure he's nice and straight again. back through to the front on, again, second from the top. Now I've bent his wiry parts and he doesn't want to go through. There. Pull them through so that they're even. Oop, too far. And then I'm just going to use a pencil, or actually in this case, I'm going to use a crochet hook because that's what I have handy. And I'm going to twist his little reindeer antlers up on each side. Ta-da! And then a quick little, oop, ta-da! So there's his little antlers. Now I've got some pretty small little eyes here. Do a quick little dot of glue. I am totally cheating. If you're using our kit, then you've got a little baggie of glue, which you can certainly open and put something in, or just cut a corner off and squeeze a little dot. But again, this is what was in reach for me right now. I really do not recommend you using your needle to apply glue. Make sure it gets on the yarn, not on the canvas, otherwise you'll end up with some funny gaps. And on the other teeny little eye. And you'll do the same with the nose. I knew where mine had gotten off to. I am quite positive it was probably absconded by a cat. So this is the smallest pom-pom that I could find close by. So you would glue your pom-pom right on the tip of his nose there. That looks pretty ridiculously large. Actually, I kind of like it. But once your pom-pom is on, let your glue dry for about 24 hours, and then your little canvas kisser is ready to be loaded. Just squeeze his little cheeks, pop the delightful treat inside, and you are good to go. Have fun!
We hope you had a good time crafting with us today. If you have any questions regarding this project, feel free to leave a comment below or send us an email at info@craftopiawa.com. And be sure to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on any future crafty goodness. Until next time!